So my friend Olga set me this challenge or suggested that this is what I do, and I took her up on it. I rather like the idea. This is a photograph that I took in Bedburg, which is outside Grahamstown. Bedford, sorry. Bedburg is outside Cologne here in Germany. It's where my cousin lives. So when I went to stay with them a couple of years ago, probably at least 10 years ago, that's how quickly time flies. This was a little arrangement of things in our cottage, and I took a photograph as the sun came in through the door. And the challenge that Olga set me is to take one photograph, so I've chosen this one, and to do it in lots of different styles. In other words, genres or movements. So you have the Impressionists, you have the Cubists, you have Surrealism, you have all those kind of movements. And so today I am going to be hopefully painting this in what I call Monet styles. In other words, the Impressionist style. And the one thing about living in Europe is that I have been able to go to lots of exhibitions, and I went to this Gustav Calebot. I don't know, I could be massacring this poor man's surname. I cannot speak French to save my life. And this man was instrumental in funding the movement for Impressionists. And here is, so this is the main work that I saw at the exhibition. And I'm a book person. I know you can do a lot of research online, and in fact these 4 paintings that I've pulled off the internet were from online, but I just find there's often far more information in Hi Christiana in books, and I love to sit and read books. And those of you who were in my studio in Cape Town know that I had a huge cupboard full of books, 90% of which have gone to my son's old school, to the art department, for which they were very grateful. So in doing some research for this project, where I'm going to paint a whole lot of different styles, here is Claude Monet doing red chrysanthemums. And hi Chrissy. And this was painted in 1881 on this side. This side is Gustav Calebot, and he painted in also a very Impressionist style. And what I love about the Impressionists is their sense of light and how they like to capture the light. And I'm struggling with this book, but you can see in the background there's the shadow area, there's the sense of light that's going through there. You can see the light on the flowers, and it is just really, really gorgeous. So I've kept that as reference. And then, of course, just before this whole lockdown, I was incredibly lucky to go to the Monet exhibition that was here in Potsdam. Potsdam is just outside Berlin, at Museum Barberini, and it was pure Monet happiness. It was, I cannot explain to you how incredible this exhibition was. To be able to see this master's work and brushstrokes up close. Well, you can't get too close. The alarms will go off. Literally, if you, there are, on the floor, there are strings. I'm sure if you've been to any big museum, you will know what I'm talking about. And you can't actually get too close. This piece of work, unfortunately, was not there, but this is one that Monet is known for. It's from his garden that he built himself and set up to be able to paint. And what I want you to see here is these incredible brushstrokes. He worked with quite thick paint. So, you know, his final layers on top of his canvas were really quite thick. The brushstrokes were really quite visible, and in fact he kind of skidded his brush or palette knife across the layers of paint that he had underneath. And I have found another picture here of his flowers in the garden, because of course I've got flowers in my picture, and it's little dabs of paint that capture the light. So there's the depth, the dark colors, and then the light. And that is what is so important in these Impressionist works. And I wanted, sorry, I seem to have a frog in my throat today. I've put water on my desk. Where is, sorry, I'm now looking through the book, which I thought I had marked. His brush strokes really are, so here is one of his paintings, which I don't think is really finished to the same degree as his other paintings. In fact, no, it doesn't have his name on. That's not his. Man-Made Paradise. No, but it doesn't look like his signature. Anyway, I'm looking for the close-up, which there it is. So here you can see his brush strokes are really, really rough, and they clip the surface of what is happening underneath. So his underpainting is quite important as his final brush strokes on top. So to this end, I have painted my background with the same grey as I did yesterday. And yesterday's painting was my interpretation of this photograph. So from here on, it'll be my impression or my interpretation of whatever style we're doing. So just popping those on the floor because they're quite heavy, and yes, gravity sucks. I've got a small studio here, so I don't want things falling down. So I've done some research, and I wanted to show you the painterly strokes that he used both in his background and on his objects and on his table. And something else that I noticed that was quite interesting when I look at his still lives is he very seldom had a straight cut-off line in the background. He worked with his table at an angle. It's evident here as well. And in fact, he's even put his signature in the same direction that he's put his brush strokes on the table. And here there isn't a particular hard edge, but you can see a color difference between his background and his foreground. And again, you can see he's built some darks in the background here. Here again, you can see his, I'm calling it sunlight, coming in over here. You can definitely see on, so I put these two next to each other because he obviously did a whole lot of studies using the same vase. So this vase and that vase are the same vase. Here he has not put any detail in. Here he has put some of the patterning in. Here the light is coming from this side. He has captured the reflection. This is obviously a very shiny, possibly shellacked surface that this cabinet has, that the vase is standing on. And here I would say it's on a tablecloth. So here he has captured the light on coming from this side with his shadows on that side. And so I just thought, okay, and here there's lots of texture in the background, texture on his surface, and I'm going to try and recreate this photograph in this style. So here goes. Challenge accepted. Right, let's have a little bit of water because clearly the frog is not going away. Maybe we'll give the frog a name like Fred or George or Harry. I don't know why it's always a boy's name. It was always a joke in my house when my dad would take a spider outside, or all the fish were called, we had goldfish. I grew up with goldfish, and all the fish were either Joe, Fred or George. And or if we took a gecko outside, it would also be named Joe, Fred or George. So we had lots of things called Joe, Fred or George, and it's a running joke, and it's continued. So my son has the same thing because anyway, it is what it is. So the frog in my throat we'll call George. Okay, so where to begin? And I have cross-hatched my canvas, and then I decided to do this last minute this morning, and I heat gunned it so it blistered a little bit there, which has added texture, which is par of course. And so I'm just reusing yesterday's paint palette. It's a paper palette, and I've actually discovered that it peels off rather nicely, so you don't have to throw every sheet away. You can reuse it quite nicely. So that was a bonus discovery. And let's get going with starting with my white, just to sketch in like I did yesterday, using my little filbert. Oh, there's a brush on the floor, told you. Okay, let's move those. Gravity sucks. Yeah, my voice is fine. I just seem to have a frog in my throat. Not enough coffee, possibly. Right, so yesterday I started with the vase, and I made my image considerably bigger than it is here. And I think I'm going to do a similar thing today, quite possibly just blowing it up a lot more so that I have the flowers as my focal point, and then my candlestick and my jug as very much background objects, because I noticed that when the Impressionists did a vase of flowers, it was a vase of flowers. It wasn't necessarily a study. I'm not trying to replicate what the Impressionists did. I'm trying to replicate their style using my photograph. And remember that they will have painted from real life. So Monet liked to go out and actually paint what he saw. He moved around a lot. They're beautiful pictures from Venice, from Spain. So sorry, I'm just trying to decide how big I want my flowers. So yeah, call me George today. So I'm trying to decide where I want my vase, and today I definitely want my streak of light, so I'm actually going to put that in. So I want my streak of light coming across here. So I'm starting from the bottom up today, and I definitely want to capture a couple of these fallen petals over here. And so in my photograph, my flowers are quite central, and I'm going to make them quite big. So I'm gonna start with my vase base over here. So yesterday I started from the top down. Today, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be almost the same size as what I did yesterday, so maybe we need to make it a little bit bigger. Make the circle bigger. So there's my little vase, my happy little vase. Now we Bob Ross. If those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Bob Ross was a TV artist, and there's at least 3 of every one of his paintings, because he used to do one for an example, one for the TV show, and then I think one for himself. So that's my vase, or as I was saying yesterday, my American friends say vase. So now I'm putting in where my flowers will go. So I've got a flower that hangs down there, and there's a whole lot more over there of the pink one, and then there's this side on view rose over there. There's this pretty pink one that's kind of facing this way. There's all of this over here is where my red flower is going to be. Then I've got in the background this pink flower that's falling down. Then of course, so behind this pink flower, sort of, not that I'm sticking accurately to this, I'm using this for reference. The base of my candlestick is, I don't know, there are some people who don't know who Bob Ross is. Christiana, I can see. Yeah. But unfortunately, yes. So for those of you who don't know who Bob Ross is, go and have a look. So I'm looking to see, it's just about there, and I'm going to bring it in because it falls underneath this pink flower. So my candlestick is going to be kind of over there, and today it'll go off my canvas because my actual frames that I'm going to be putting this in are slightly smaller than this. So the candlestick will go up here, and it's just a little bit higher than my flowers. So the actual top of my candlestick is going to be somewhere over here, somewhere there. So I'm sketching it in at this stage. I'm not getting too specific because, again, I want to do my background. Morning, Mom, from the other side of the flat. So I'm sketching this in so that I know where I want to do my background, because, again, I don't want to be fiddling around my objects, although I have a sneaking suspicion when I look at how the backgrounds are of these Impressionists paintings. I have a sneaking suspicion that and I'm bringing, so I've brought this in, and I'm bringing my jug in, and the jug is a lot taller, so the jug is going to disappear, and so is my bowl, or my dish, should be about there. And if that is where my flower is over here, then my handle of my jug is going to swing right out of the picture, because yesterday we had the jug handle was going swing. Yes, Bob Ross is amazing because you can literally sit and paint along with him, and there are a lot of people that do Bob Ross kind of lookalikes. So the curvature of my handle should be somewhere over here, in which case this is way off, and this should be over here. So this is way in, but that doesn't matter. In fact, so am I going to have any of this in here? This should be up there. As I said, this isn't going to, my jug is not my focal point today. So my jug is definitely not my focal point. That's going to be disappearing off there. Okay, so now I've got my structure in. In fact, I might not even put my jug in. I'll see. It's going to be one of those things that we work out as we go along. And in fact, based on the size of that, I'm going to make my jug a little bit, jar. My jar a little bit bigger, because I just want it to be bigger. So at this stage I'm just plotting and planning, because then my flowers can be bigger. Okay, so that's my plot. Morning Mandy, morning Nita, morning Amber, morning Jennifer. Got a whole lot of people watching today. It's Good Friday. It doesn't feel like Easter at all. There are no bells ringing for church. It's just weird today. So I'm carrying on as normal, such as the new normal, which is lockdown. At least here in Germany it's partial lockdown. We're not completely locked away. Right, so now using my bigger brush, and again I want brush strokes, so I'm going to intentionally use a big thick brush. It's a hard hog hair bristle brush to just paint the base of my vase. And you'll notice that I'm using my brush strokes to help create the form of my vase. So in the middle my brush strokes will be straight, and then round the side they're gonna curve. And get my base in there, make sure my vase is standing straight. Nothing more irritating than something not looking like it's standing straight. Okay. And I'm going to leave it kind of grey on that side, and I'm going to build up my white here. And because it's an impressionist picture, I'm going to now start to build smaller brush strokes, because the impressionists were trying to capture the sense of light. And I suppose the best way to explain it is if you think of sunshine through a tree, it's kind of dappled. And yeah, so this photograph was taken, I know that this was a white wall with white marble with grey fleck, and because of the deepness of the shadow and the strength of the sunshine hitting here, there's lots of reflections and deepness of shadow happening. I'm also going to paint this guy white as a base. I'm not going to paint, well, he won't stay this bright because I don't want the candlestick to be the main focus of this picture. I just want it in the background. And so I'm just building that there. I'm doing this so that this can dry while I carry on with the background, because I want to be able to come back to this. And again, I'm going to start using quite thick paint, because it's how my brush is going to capture the underlying texture that's also going to be important for this picture. It's how Monet finished his paintings off. When I look at his actual brush strokes, the underlying brush strokes made an impression on the top finishing brush strokes. So I'm trying to just make smaller dabs and leave thick, not impasto paint, it's not quite impasto, but and I'm just going to use the front of my brush towards that line to get it nice and neat. Bit of a wonky candlestick today. Oh, apparently I have the shakes. I haven't had enough coffee, so I'm going to break my own rules, and I'm just going to straighten that up. And here we go. Okay. And build more impasto on this side. I can already see that the cross hatching that I built underneath when I did my priming is coming through quite nicely, so I'm quite pleased with that. Last week one of my live streams was how to prepare your canvas so that you can have these brush strokes showing through your paint, and the paint that I used that I discovered worked the nicest was the texture paste, gave the roughest base texture. This is too high and too exaggerated by comparison, so it will have to come down. Right, now I'm going to put the jug in. And if that is the handle going off there, then the jug actually is there and there. So it's going right off the canvas in the background. we've of course got our dish, which is happening over here, which is going right off the canvas. Okay, so now that I've got that in, I'm going to start with the background colors, and I'm going to use my other filbert. I'm just going to clean this in some water, because I don't like leaving my brushes in water if I can at all help it, because the water soaks up into the bristles, releases the glue, and then eventually it soaks up into the handle and releases all the paint on it. So if you wonder why your paint brushes are shedding on the handle, it's because you've been leaving them in the water too long. Okay, so I've rescued that. Yesterday I used burnt umber, so I'm going back to using burnt umber. And I'll pop it back down here like I did. So I used burnt umber in my background. I also was using a lot of, I won't need Prussian blue just yet, but I will use my Payne's grey, which I will put there. And so I'm going to start with some brush strokes going round, and in fact I'm going to grab a little bit of my white and pop it on my palette up there. I'm going to start building some of my background in my combo of my umber and my Payne's grey. And just because it is easier to get, so if you are trying to do horizontal strokes, your hand naturally wants to curve, so it's quite difficult to try and work horizontally, especially as today I seem to be slightly off center from myself. That's why it's feeling a little bit awkward. Okay, let's just push this in. I'm using my drawers on my desk as extra table space so that my paints are sitting out of view. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn my canvas like this so that I can get my brush strokes to work horizontally, because I've decided, even though they worked at an angle, or maybe I'll work at an angle. What should I do? They always had their table at an angle. Okay, I'm going to have the same. So I'm going to start my brush strokes then, coming from my object out. I can tidy up later. And I'm just going to go around there like that. And I'm going to try and keep the same angle. And I'm intentionally leaving my brush strokes to show. Well, I'm trying. What's happening is they're all smoothing out. Okay, so I've got that happening there. So your brush strokes show and give the feeling of depth. So this table feels like it's going that way with these brush strokes. So I'm going to keep that feeling going, hopefully in the same direction. And I'm going to end this here because the light is going to come along here like this sunshine is. And so I'm going with the warmer tones. So I've got less Payne's grey on my brush as I'm coming towards the light. And I'm also using what I know as a tool, which is the smaller brush strokes at the back near the object will give a sense of depth, because smaller goes away and bigger comes towards you. So at the bottom here I'm going to do bigger brush strokes. still keeping the same direction, but I'm gonna make them bigger and bolder and more obvious. So, is the picture pixeled? I'm not sure. On my screen, it's looking fine. Maybe it's your internet, Christiana. I was hoping, well, for a start, today we won't have our buildings. I've gone back to, sorry, I'm going to just explain quickly. I've gone back to having more Payne's grey in my background over here because I want a colder feeling, so I want it to disappear more, but I need to also now get my brush strokes a little smaller. So, for months now we've had people renovating on the 4th floor, and I'm beginning to wonder if there's actually anything left of that flat at all. And then we've of course had a water issue in our building on my side, so there's sort of, they're quite clever how they work this building. So we are like 3 different styles of flats above each other in a circle, and so my building is circular with a well down the middle, and all the walkways are around the middle, which is rather beautiful and spectacular. Anyway, so on my what I call stack of flats, we had the water issues. So we've had not only the guys drilling for the 4th floor flat, and I don't know what else they've been up to up there, we've also had them drilling above me to get into the wall to be able to fix where this water problem has been. So it being a public holiday today and again on Monday, thankfully I will not be dealing with the what I call building dentists. It sounds like they are giant dentists drilling the building, and it's been quite exhausting. So today of course we don't have that. So I've done my small brush strokes at the back over here to build the feeling of depth and so on. I'm just going right into where my flowers and leaves and things are going to be, because I can work on top of that with what I call my Tippex paint, which is really just my De La Rani Kryler range. So I need to come and tidy up there. Right. So now I've got my base in. I'm going to come back and make this darker because it's really rather dark, and the Impressionists did not use black. They used Prussian blue. So I'm cheating a bit by using Payne's grey, because Payne's grey is a mix and has black in it. Oh good, Christiane, I can see that you've got your thing back. So yes, I was hoping with it being a public holiday that not everybody, like my husband's off, you know, the workforce is hopefully relaxing. Okay, so I also need to build some dark behind here. Rather wonky candlestick today. In South Africa we had a brand of ceramics down the garden route called Wonky Ware, and it was intentionally wonky and wobbly. Oh, I'll have to fix that. The frame is probably coming to there. Good grief, you can see my shake today. Look at that. People always say, Belinda, you don't, you know, you have such a steady hand. Well, it's not always, and one has to learn to just work with it. Okay, so now I've got my base, the base of my base going. What you looking for? Double-sided tape. Sorry, my husband, what size do you need? Oh, that's too wide. Hang on. Excuse my big arm, people. Okay, there we go. They're skinny and 1 centimeter stuck together. Okay, so now I've got my, where's my paint? Putting my shadows in. And I know I normally say work from light to dark, but okay, now I need my tub of beige paint. Hi Evelyn. So I'm going to just take, where's another sucker stick? So I'm going to just take some of this beige, which is probably, if I know me, it is raw sienna. For those of you who work with the South African brand of paints, it's 705. Where is it? In my load of paints over here. It's gone. How can it be gone? I always have at least 3 tubes. Oh, I think it's on the floor. Yeah, it's sorry, raw umber, not sienna. Sienna's brown. More red. So it's the raw umber with white. Gives you a lovely cream shade. And because the Impressionists always had a sense of light, so of course our light is coming from over here, I'm going to try and create the same thing in the background. And they also had very directional brush strokes, and it isn't necessarily the same way as the table. So my table I've got coming towards me like this, I've decided I'm actually going to make my background brush strokes. And this is too big, so remember I said I'm going to just delete some of this because I want it about there. There we go. So this is far too big, so I'm just going to take some of this, and I'm using whatever I've got on my brush. You'll notice I haven't actually washed my brush, going from dark to light, which is intentional because I wanted the paint in my brush. And I'm leaving some of this gray base that I've put on here to shine through in places. So I'm just going to reconstruct my candlestick. There we go. And I'm trying to create this sense of light that's happening up here, remembering that I have kind of blown this up and I'm using this as my focal point, and I've just restructured my picture somewhat. And so although now I went around that, I need to just come down there. So I'm intentionally using long brush strokes like the Impressionists did in their background. There's sometimes, so when I do Van Gogh, so next week Thursday will be Van Gogh as my artist that I'm using for reference, because again I've been lucky enough to go to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam and see his works in person and study his brushstrokes and his style. And I love the way he creates almost like Starry Starry Night, those halos around things. So I'm intentionally getting a little bit of Payne's Grey and raw umber, no, burnt umber. Good grief, there's no cooked umber, there's only raw or burnt. These just, somebody posted the other day, can nobody in the art world actually cook, because it's either raw or burnt. So I'm building my background in skinny brush strokes coming up, and I'm building a little bit of shadow in my background now behind these flowers because it'll help them pop. I want this pink guy, and it's again a guy. Could be a pink girl, but then I'd be being sexist. I'm building some shadow in my background brush strokes around my objects intentionally, so that when I build my flowers they have something to pop on. Okay, now let's go to this side where I'm probably going to land up obliterating my jug's handle. And I'm going darker on this side intentionally because my light is coming from here. I'm going to have my sunshine coming there. So I'm intentionally building darker brush strokes up here. And I know that this wall was white, but the light reflecting and the deepness of the shadows is, so it's quite warm, so that's why I've gone for the cream. It's also reflecting the pink from the flowers, so you could get really technical and warm it up with some pinks and so on going on. And again, I'm wanting these brush strokes quite small in the background because they are far away, they're on the wall. And I'm trying to bring some depth of shadow on this side and let it fade into the warmer reflection at the top. So today I'm intentionally letting my brush strokes show. And intentionally watching the scale of my brush strokes. So because I'm not working on a canvas, I'm working on paper canvas, it's a little bit warped, which is why I'm having to hold it. Okay, so now I've built what I'm going to build onto, and this has dried a bit, so I'm feeling like it now needs some thicker paint. But I'm going to let that dry up there. Maybe I should come back. No, I'll fiddle with that when I build everything. So now I've got a base coat of color everywhere. I now need to start building some of my thicker things. But I think I'm also going to play with two things. So this is my interpretation of Monet and the Impressionists, and I think I'm going to leave my really thick paint for my flowers and keep my flatter paint for my background and my objects that I want in the background. So while I've got this dirty brush, I'm going to just use this to push back my candlestick. So I am dry brushing at this stage on my candlestick to push it into the background and to also pick up my underpainting of where I had my really rough brush strokes, both of my grey priming and of my white that I've intentionally put on here with some thick chunks. So that is working quite nicely, and that has pushed that back. And I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to grab some of this color because I want to push my jug back, and it's got quite a blue hue, the jug. So I'm going to just take some of the Payne's Grey and push that back over there. And I haven't really worked in here. Okay, so now I need to get some of my color into my dish, and I'm again going to work with the Payne's Grey and Burnt Umber, and intentionally use little brush strokes to create the sense of depth. So I have this, which is a crisp edge coming out there, but I want the feeling of brush strokes in here and texture in the shadows, and then it must get a bit lighter as the brush strokes come down the dish. So the dish, this curve and that curve should match each other, which they don't, because I can't quite get there at this angle. There we go. So the dish is sinking down into the depths over there. So there's a lot of shadow over here as the dish has the depth, and then I'm just going to just tap in some of this in sort of a textural, using the tip of my brush to just clip the edge where the light is catching it. And I'm going to build, while I've got that on my brush, I'm going to build this here. Good grief, it's almost an hour already. Today I remembered to put the clock in the room. I've put it on a cushion so it doesn't tick so loudly, because it really does tick really loudly. Okay, so there's my bowl sticking out. Okay, so now I'm going to build my jug handle, which was over here. And it's going up and it's going around. Today it's not going swing, so actually we'll go swing off the canvas. So it would come back up and it would come round over here. So it is going there, and I need a little bit more of my background color in here because that is too big. That's the joy of paint. On a computer you have a delete button. In paint you just delete it. So I was reading on another group, somebody was struggling with their white. They bought a white which they had wanted to be opaque and cover stuff. Mostly we use gesso. Gesso is very opaque and works as a primer and as what I call a great Tipex. But she had bought zinc white, and zinc white is an intentionally transparent white. And if you buy a brand like Golden products, for example, they always have these sort of black at the top of the tube of paint. Whereas I have one here. So at the top of your tube of paint you have these diagonal lines that go across in black, and they take an actual paint brush and they paint across it so that you can see the opacity of that paint. So titanium is always going to be your opaque white, and zinc is going to be your translucent white, which is great for clouds, it's great for smoke, it's great for creating effects, whereas your titanium is great for covering up mistakes. Okay, so there comes my jug in the background, and just building some of its shadow. Now I'm going to build some of this depth of the jug. Yes, what do you need now?
Wallpaper.
Wallpaper for your desk. There's some up there. Different colors are up there, or there's two down here. There's a brown down here. I don't know what color. So, are you also going to be doing Facebook Lives?
No, it's just by my desk. It's this one you don't.
That's one I don't use at the moment. So my trick here in Germany for taking photographs of my finished work is you can go and get for free sample offcuts of roller towel, not roller towel, like you put roller towel on your wall, wallpaper, at the hardware store. And I always ask, because wallpaper has a repeat pattern in it, I always ask them to take a little bit before and after each side of the repeat pattern, and I use that as my backdrops for my photographs, because my desk isn't pretty. It's just a plank of wood from the hardware store and my pink craft mats, cutting mats on it, and then my very dirty craft mat on top of that. And I'm trying to remember while I talk to tap and make brush strokes and intentional textures, which is what the Impressionists did while I paint. So that's how I get nice backgrounds in my photographs. Also, it keeps it, I keep them rolled up and out of the way, so that I don't get paint and stuff on my... I'm going to light down there, build some more shadow down here. So the trick with this is layering, building layers and layers of colors and textures until you're happy with it. And I need a little bit more shadow underneath there, and in fact there is, okay, there is, while I've got this color on my brush, there's some nice shadow happening in here, and I can't see the shadow on there, but there's some shadow that comes down on the outside of my handle. Let me just hold the paper still because I can't actually get it to behave. And I'm concentrating, so then I keep quiet, sorry. So I'm trying to use my brush strokes intentionally to create the shadow and the form of my objects. I'm gonna go with some dark brown this time on the outside here of my handle, because I've got so much Payne's grey in my background, the blue is just not going to show up. I wonder if they use their fingers. Fingers are great tools. Hi Venu, welcome. Amy, got James watching today. So let's just see. Maybe I'll bring some brown in here. And I'll bring a little bit of brown up there. And definitely on this side of this bump we need. So the nice thing with this is your brush strokes don't have to be perfect. Try and build more depth down here in the bowl. And swing along here, because there's some shadow happening on the edge of this bowl. And I probably should be tapping my brush. It's very hard to remember that. Okay, so now I'm going to put some of the dark in here, but I need some green because I want to build my flowers on top of those leaves today. mix some Payne's grey with some sap green and get some dark green happening in there. Get some dark happening along here. It's not really very dark, is it? Okay. So now what? Maybe I should finish this off a bit more and finish off my jug a little bit more. So my jug is coming out here. Remember, I don't really want my jug to be too much of a focal point. So I'm just going to try and create the feeling of light as the jug is being hit by the reflected light from here. And this is going right out the picture today. And it's much closer. I've reconstructed my photograph in my painting to suit myself, because that's what you can do as an artist. One can rearrange things, because nobody's going to have that photograph next to this. And technically, Impressionists actually painted what they saw, so they will have had this as a still life in front of them. They would not have been working from a photograph. Although they did take photographs and do studies. But if possible, they did what was called plein air painting, which is outside. And most of their still lives and things were actually worked from real life, which in these lockdown situations is not always possible. So I'm trying to create a feeling of texture here in my jug, which I think has come too low. Needs to come up a bit. So I'm just going to renovate it a bit. I'm going to bring my jug up. And I can do that because I've got titanium white, which has more coverage. Right, that feels better. Okay, so my jug definitely needs to be fatter. Comes down here more. Totally rearranging my picture as we go. Just giving it okay, but now I need to bring some shadow back and push this back, because my flower is what I want. Nah, that's too brown. Get off. Put some Payne's grey in there. It's going to be dark blue anyway there. So maybe I should just use time to get my Prussian blue out so that I can put the detail into the jug so I can paint onto it. So I'm going to grab some Prussian, because there's definitely a hint of the design happening behind my flower here, and it's happening up the jug. So the jug is there, and there, and while I've got the Prussian out, I'm going to put in this detailing, which I'm trying to do in Impressionist style, which is sort of capturing the light, not in a perfect way. And going up the lip with the blue, and on the side, and And over here we have some blue on the handle. So you're giving an impression of what is there. And they had some little dots happening there, and that happening there with another dot. And over here is something, and I think that's a bit bigger. Okay, so now I've got my jug in, and while I've got this blue, I'm going to put, because I need the curve of my hand to go this way, I'm going to put that there. And now, seeing as I've got this blue going, maybe I should work over here. I didn't finish that off, so let me finish this off. I'm back into my paints, grey and brown, and I need to tidy this up. So I'm now recreating this top over here, which I had to bring down because when I sketched it in originally I made it too big. And remember, when you are working with an ellipse, there is no point on the end of a circle. There is no end to a circle. I probably should be using my smaller filbert. And I'm totally cheating and turning my picture upside down. That's because we just don't have time. I would normally sit and paint carefully and turn it this way, make sure I don't have paint on my hand. And whatever curve you have here is repeated up here. Silence as I concentrate. Whoops. Oh, that's not good. But I will fix it because I have some background I can use. Come back with some background. A little bit warmer color. And thankfully, being impressionist, you can just dab away. So that you can fix it. And I know that the top of the candlestick has still got to come here. But they built up layers and layers and layers of color, so I can do the same. So I'm just trying to build and create the same feeling. So this is my light side of my canvas, trying to create the impression of light over here. So I'm using a lighter color now over my dark colors, which, as I said, totally breaks the rule, which I said at the beginning when I started this series of painting classes, which is work from, in acrylic, work from dark to light, light to dark, because you can cover a lighter color with a darker color, but it's very hard to go the other way around. And now I need to start building my shading in my candlestick. So this is my shadow side, and I'm gonna come down here. I want it a bit bluer, so I'm gonna go with a little bit of Prussian, because I'm trying to knock, I know it's a white candlestick originally with the design on. I also want a little bit of cobalt. Dankeschön, Christiana. So I'm coming, I want a bit of a lighter blue. I've still got this bit too tall. It's a lot flatter, but that's just tough. You know, if you were painting by yourself, you have a whole lot more time than when you're trying to do a Facebook Live, because I've already been painting for an hour. And I'm going to just give an intimation of the design that's on here. And do the same thing down here. So I'm not even trying to make it look like leaves really. It will look like there's a design that came across here. And I'm just trying to remember to keep my initial color quite dark on this side. And so I'm intimating at the fact that there are leaves and flowers and things going on here. And again, I've got this base far too big, so I'm actually going to possibly shrink it with my background, because there are leaves coming along here. So it's kind of leaves this way and that way, and then there's something biggish here, and then there's leaves, and there's, but all of this is quite dark on the side. And then there's the blue ring. So again, I'm just going to turn my canvas because my hand curves naturally that way. When you got a small canvas, you can totally cheat and do this. And I should probably break that up a little bit. Let's give it a little bit darker shadows on this side. Let's go into some Payne's grey. So I'm going to give some Payne's grey textures on this side. And again I'm going to build some idea of shadow and depth by using Payne's grey up here and some Payne's grey in these guys. They're all guys today, and I'm still wanting more depth over here, so there we go. Right, and I think I want some more depth underneath here. So I'm just trimming this and hopefully getting some depth and darkness on the shadow side over here. Morning, Claire. Trying to do Monet. This is actually going to be chopped off with the frame, so, but I'm still trying to, whoops, there went my picture. Okay, so now I want more depth over here, and I'm going back to the panes because I want it bluer, colder, color will go further away. And I'm working on an easel so that I can see what I'm doing, because it's a bit difficult to work flat. I hope you guys can see. So that's where I'm at the moment. And I'm just going to turn it upside down because I can work any which way. There's a book called Working on the Right Side of the Brain, and I've mentioned this before. If you are struggling with your design or your project or whatever it is, if you're copying from a photograph, turn your picture upside down, because then your brain will no longer be confused or by the shapes and the forms that it sees, because the left side can't recognize things when they're upside down. Well, it can, you can still see. So the one example or work that they put in the book is a drawing by Pablo Picasso of a well-known musician, and you can still see that it's a hand or a nose or a pair of glasses or whatever, but yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for your left side to interfere. So it's a good exercise. Okay, so now I've got that going. Now the fun part, time to put, oh, I haven't put that in. Blast. Okay, let's quickly put that in. I'm dying to get to the fun part of the flowers. Okay, so we need the candlestick, which is okay. I need to clean my brush. And I'm going to totally cheat again and turn it upside down. Today there's lots of upside down painting. Yeah, I must still come back with a white edge along this edge, because that's not right either. Sorry if I go quiet while I'm concentrating. It's hard to keep talking all the time. Normally if I work in silence. And I've got nobody to chat to or with, so I'm just chatting to myself. Okay, time to use the little fill bit again. So I'm going to come with some burnt umber and Payne's grey, and put in there we go, and somehow managed to make this skew, so I'll just straighten it up a little bit. The joy of paint, it's just paint. And I need to bring some shadow side across here, and So I'm going to let that dry and recover itself. Flowers! Yay, I can do the flowers. Let's wash my brush. Okay, that's a little bit clean. This guy's got white on it anyway, but I need fresh white. Let's have some fresh white there. Okay, now let's put some flowers in. So again, I'm starting at the back over here, and I'm going to put in this rose that's kind of collapsed. And I'm trying to keep in the Impressionist style, which is to use lots of little brush strokes, which is difficult. It's going to land up looking like a peony or a, I don't know, it might not be recognizable as a rose. But, and again, we have those little flower stamens. Now, yesterday I used a little bit of raw sienna, which I think I will use again together with a little bit of burnt umber. And I'm just going to put, so it's the little where the pollen is. It's that bit of the flower. I need to bring it down a bit. Okay. So let's clean that off and bring some of the burnt guy in. Okay, back to white, and going to kind of try, this is where I want to work quite thick, and so that it's in contrast to the things in the background. And bring the petals round and onto there. And so remember, when you're painting, you need to know how the flower grows. So that's its central point here, and it's, so all its petals grow from here, so they will all relate to this point over here, and gravity sucks, so the petals are falling that way. And while we're busy with gravity sucks, this flower over here is just about fallen apart, and there is a stem which goes like so into the flower pot, and there's another branch that goes up there. And while I've got this raw sienna on my brush, I'm going to do the others that are catching the light over here. Here's another two, and back to my white. And now I need to start putting my reds and things in here. But today I'm going to use, because I want the thickness, I'm going to be using my Kryler paints, which are heavy body, and they will dry with thickness. They will dry with whatever I do with my brush strokes. They will stay fairly raised. And hey, oh dear, that one's got a bit dry. Deep purple doesn't look like deep purple anyway. There's a little sucker stick or something I can stick in here. How about the back of a brush? So there seems to be a bit of a dry cap on that one. I haven't used these paints for quite a while. Okay, there we go. No idea, that one must have been left open, or maybe its lid wasn't shut properly. Okay, so now I'm going to actually build from behind. I'm going to build my pink flower that's collapsing, and I want a little bit of this. I'm going to put a little bit of blue in it because that is just too bright, much too bright. It'll be nice for that guy. In fact, I'm just going to start again, go up here. I want it nice and pale for this back guy. Girl, it's pink. Okay, so I want to build my flower over here. And it's quite far out if I look in relation to my pot, but remembering that my actual construction of this pink picture has been completely out of kilter to the rest of it, because I have intentionally wanted to build my flowers as my main focal point. So what I'm trying to do is create a sense of depth here, because I've got a big white flower that's coming over the top. So I'm wanting a little bit of the colder red in my pink so that it pushes it back. And while I've got this color on, I'm going to do the same as yesterday, and I'm going to build this background flower that's falling down the back of my picture here. I don't want it too bright, that's gone too bright. And there we go. And again, while I've got, okay, so some of this pink is up here, and it's the warmer pink because the sun's catching it a little bit, and it's falling over the edge of my pot. I'm going to go with this warmer color. I'm going to build up here now. Just get this off my brush. And I'm building this flower over the top. And then this guy is going to come down here. It's very much a background flower. There's not too much form to it. There's a little bit of this colder pink underneath in places. There's a little bit of this red. So I'm trying to use smaller brush strokes to give the impression of the color like the Impressions did, which is hard when you're used to being a broad stroke artist. Broad brush stroke person. Okay, what do I need to do now? I need to possibly finish off this flower, which is, I need to make it perhaps a bit bigger and maybe a bit whiter. So I'm trying to build again how this flower is falling using smaller brush strokes. And then capturing the highlight on this petal there and along there, and it's falling down there, and over here. So okay, and there's a little bit of pink reflected in here, so I'm going to come with some pink today in this guy. Okay, and now I'm going to use what's on my brush, and I'm going to finish off this fallen down white flower over here. And it has I've completely gone off course. Okay, so there's some pink reflection on the pot, there's definitely a slight pinkish glow on my vase. And I think I can come up here more with this flower. And bring some more highlight in. Exaggerate it a bit. Sorry, I've gone quiet again. I forget to talk. I get involved in what I'm doing. Okay, now it's time to go for this red guy. So I'm gonna just clean off my brush, and I'm gonna go for this delicious red, and I'm gonna get it in here, and I'm gonna go around there, and over here, so these petals kind of come up here like that, and there's another one there, and then this one is falling down here. So this flower is taking over a focal point, and yeah, I think today, I know it just touches the edge, but I'm going to take my flower over the vase today, and right now I can use some of this other color as a highlight. I'm not sure where the center of this flower is. It's somewhere in there, so we can possibly have a little bit of, whoops, that's far too much dark. Try and get some shadow going in there. That was a bit ridiculous. It does come down here a bit. And has a nice edge to it. There we go. And what else do I need to do? I need to maybe come back with some highlights. Sometimes that's difficult while it's also wet, because it just wants to blend in. And of course the impressionists, the whole thing about theirs is the light. So I'm trying to create that feeling of light on this side. And there's definitely some light shining through this petal over here. Okay, I'm gonna stop there with that and wash my brush. Now I'm going to finish off the vase, and I will put in some green leaves, I think. So this vase has also a similar pattern to these guys, but it has far more detail, and I'm just going to put this depth in here. Put the curve back. And now I'm going to just intimate, add some leaves and things that are happening. There's some flowers on this vase. Going back with my Prussian blue with a little bit of cobalt in it. Hi Helen. Hi Hilary. We're almost done. I'm just intimating at the design that was on this vase. And it comes up this side a little bit more obvious because over here it's been blown out by the sunshine. So I'm putting in hints of the leaves. Shana Tova, Hilary. Okay, so I'm going brighter on this side, probably than I should. And there are still some hints of things happening. Okay, so now I need to go back to possibly some more blue up here. Let's have some brighter blue capturing this edge. And I want to come back. I haven't put my white in here. I'm gonna just bring in some yellow ochre. Whoops, my brush has fallen behind me. I want some yellow ochre in my white because I need some more white. Where have I got space for white? Let's do it up there. Don't need a lot. So I'm wanting to bring some warmth into, and that's far too much. Let's get rid of it down here somewhere. If you put a hint of yellow ochre in your white, it gives it somehow a whiter feeling. So I'm going to just bring that up into here. I want some thicker white. Trying to give the feeling of the sunshine which is coming in what I know was a door and hitting the vase and yeah, I want it quite nice and thick again up here. And I'm trying to use the small brush strokes like the Impressionists would have done. Okay, and now while I've got this color going, I'm going to use it to put these petals, which I didn't put yesterday. And I'm going to bring some of this yellow ochre into it. I'm not going to do all the petals, there were lots of petals. And the sense of sunshine that is on the table. I'm intentionally not using too much paint, but I want to still keep it in the same direction that my table's going in. It's just a shaft of sunshine. I'm trying to work thick. Which is not really happening. There we go, that's better. And it's going past my bars. It's a bit more in front than I've got it, but remember this gets cut off. So I'm trying to get that feeling of sunshine. Hitting my table and my vase and hitting these guys. So maybe my sunshine will be the yellow. In which case I'll need a bit more yellow in here. Not too much, just a little bit. Give the vase a little bit of form and a little bit of, and then my sunshine carried on out of the picture, and it's fading on this side. My happy little sunshine ray. It's definitely stronger here. And I will have to knock some of this back, but I will do that off camera. I think that's enough for today, people. It's been quite a marathon painting session. And I'm going to bring some of this nice warm color into this flower over here, because the sunshine is definitely catching that. And I have done absolutely no green today. Where is my green? I need my green. I'm going to use, it's the last thing I'm going to put in before I disappear for today. And I will see you guys on Monday with a craft project. No idea what yet. Tomorrow I am online at 10 p.m. Central European time, or 10 p.m. South Africa time, or if you're from the States it's 1 p.m. so 1300 hours lunchtime Pacific time. I'm having to learn about all these time zones because I've never really had to deal with them before. Okay, and then there's some green that pops out here as well with a little bit of a highlight. And there's some green in this background over here, just a little bit. So I'm going to take some of this, some of that, some of this, some of that, because I want it to kind of just be in the background. It almost looks painted already in my photograph. It's just a hint of a leaf that's falling down here. And there's a little bit more of a hint of green coming over here and maybe over there. And there's definitely a bit of green happening over here. And let's have a little bit more of a leaf coming over the top of this red guy so that the red guy goes back a little bit. It's a bit underneath. Okay, I think that's enough for today. My impressionist vase of flowers. My attempt at an impressionist vase of flowers could do with some more shadowing and things happening over here. And I will probably do a little bit more tidying up offline, but that's what we've got today. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. There will be fine art on Thursday and Friday next week, and crafting on Monday and Tuesday. I know Monday is another public holiday, but it's so nice to work without the drilling going on. Thanks, guys. Bye.